Alright, starting the game in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so morphing in here at the bottom left position, we have mouz.Morrow as our blue Zerg, and in the top right, we have Liquid.Huk as our red Protoss. So yet again, of course, this is round of 32, and the starting map is Zalnaga Caverns. So I hope you all are not feeling, like you're seeing the same thing over and over again as we are on the same map with the same matchup. But as we saw with the last two series, of course, we see a completely different play on this map, regardless of if it is the same matchup or not. So I'm really interested to see, whether Huk is going to opt for. It looks like he is going to opt for this, in-base opening as opposed to the type of Forge expansion that we were seeing in that first series.
Yeah, Huk is somebody who, like I was saying, practices with players like OGSMC a lot. So I would not be at all surprised to see his openings very similar to what MC likes to do. And based off of what I've seen of Huk in events like the GSL, he's somebody who knows how to do things like really aggressive warp gate tactics, force fields, and all those crazy shenanigans quite well. And would not be at all surprised to see him do something similar this time around as well. Meanwhile, Morrow, just a pretty solid macro player all around, so I really expect to see a more economic style out of him.
Yeah, and yet I can't remember the last time I've seen Morrow do a build other than gas pool expansion. So I mean, Huk, I'm sure, has watched plenty of Morrow's games. He's been in the TL Open very, very many times. So his games are pretty well publicized. He's in all those big tournaments in Europe. So it's pretty easy to find games of it. I'm sure Huk has been watching games from him for this match, and he's probably prepared for this gas pool opening, as Morrow really loves this build, and I've seen him do it pretty much almost every game I've ever seen him ZVP. So
yeah, so his probe just hanging around in the base of Morrow, and if you aren't familiar with Huk's probe, then you best be getting familiar, because Huk's probe is one of the most terrifying things in all of StarCraft 2. He'll right-click your base and then make a heart, and then that probe will go on a killing spree and kill all of your drones single-handedly, and throw down a bunch of pylons and just absolutely ruin your day.
So
when you think of probes that are being annoying, Huk is definitely the first player that comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure. So really, really interesting choice here from Huk. He actually went for second gas before he got his cybernetics core. So you almost never see Protoss players do this. Almost always they'll get their cybernetics core, and even if they're going to be spamming sentries, they'll get it. They'll get their second gas after they start the cybernetics core. So possibly going to be going for some really high gas type of play right here. The only thing that comes to mind is something like a DT tech, and we do have a probe over in the bottom right of the base that looks like he might be getting ready to place a pylon and drop down some hidden DT tech over here.
It is going to get scouted out by the Zergling, but all right. So Morrow has spotted it on his mini-map and almost didn't react to that, but he will take that down. He has right-clicked on that to make sure that it doesn't get away, and it's just going to chase it down. That probe is going to make its way back home, where there is a Zealot and a Stalker for it, or for defensive capabilities.
So it looks like he's actually going for Stargate play. There's no way for us to know if he was actually going to go for a proxy Stargate down here, or if he was just going to use that for scouting, or for a proxy of some other tech. But he has built a Stargate in base. Morrow does have this Overlord above his base. If he decides to suicide that Overlord and move it in, he might be able to scout that. But not moving it at this point in time. We'll have to see if he'll be able to defend against the most likely Phoenix tactics that we'll probably be seeing in this game. Meanwhile, we do have a Roach Warren going down now for Morrow. Still just one gas, so just getting that Roach Warren out so he'll be able to defend against any type of aggressive tactics. I think he definitely saw that early second gas, which is why he went scouting around with that Zergling, and he's trying to play a little bit cautious right now, as he's not sure exactly what's going to be coming out of Huk.
And there is a Roach Warren on the way for Morrow, and considering that there are Void Rays on the way, then if Huk does follow this up with some Phoenixes, then Morrow might be in a lot of trouble. Morrow right now is also throwing down a few Spine Crawlers to set up a nice defensive position, but unfortunately Spine Crawlers can't hit air units, and there is another Phoenix being queued up behind that. And it does look like this first Void Ray is just going to move out on the map and go Overlord hunting with a few Phoenixes queued up behind.
Yeah, so I mean, same build that we saw on was it Teldrim Altar, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you know, that build of getting that Void Ray, then getting the Phoenix. But it looks like actually Huck is not opting for more Phoenixes. He just wanted one Void Ray. Oh, never mind. Actually, sorry about that. He just stopped production for a little while there, but he is continuing to do that. Now it looks like he's going to charge up his Void Ray on these destructible rocks, come after this Queen. But there is a second Queen in position, and it looks like, oh, he does not lose the charge. He's going to have to lift up one of these Queens. He's not able to transfuse. Very good decision. A lot of Protoss players in this situation would lift up the one that they're killing with the Void Ray, but I mean, then if they have energy to transfuse, which this Queen almost does have, they'll be able to transfuse the lifted Queen. Unfortunately, that Void Ray does get taken out, as we do have that third Queen down there. So this is going to be shut down by Morrow. So pretty good defense. Only lost one Queen to the lost Void Ray, right? And Huck is completely stopped Stargate production. Just using that as an opener and really transitioning into already having 6 gateways, despite his natural not even being up yet, although finishing right about now. So Huck completely changing up his playstyle here. Pretty good move. He's pretty much forced Morrow to get some air defense. Morrow has no idea. Is he going to keep making Phoenixes? Is he going to keep making Void Rays? Generally speaking, Protoss players that already have the Stargate are going to try to use it. So, I mean, he's making a Hydra Den and an Evo Chamber to make sure he's going to be safe versus this. And this is going to be great for Huck because, I mean, he's just going into a completely different style that is not going to be what Morrow's expecting. Now, that being said, since the style that Morrow's being forced into is Hydra-based, I don't know if going for that 6 gate is the wisest choice as opposed to going for example, Robotics Facility and maybe 4 or 5 gates to get Immortals or Colossi out there to help deal with those Hydras.
Yeah, but he still set himself up for an excellent transition. And even with this many gateways, he's going to be able to do a decent amount of damage. You see, he's made a ton of sentries around. There are 9 sentries on the field in his army composition right now, and they all have a decent amount of energy. Only 2 of them are practically brand new. These Phoenixes are going to continue bouncing around, finding a bunch of stray Overlords down here in the back of the base of Morrow. And they're going to try to find a blind spot, but the Hydralisks are in position to start dealing with those. Phoenix is continuing to glide around the map to do whatever damage they can, but here comes Huck with his gateway army. No forward pylon has been thrown down, so it's just going to be a ton of sentries, a few Zealots, a Stalker, and a Phoenix here, and that's not going to be enough for Huck to do a significant amount of damage, so he will pull back home and get a few more units out, also adding on a Robotics Facility.
Yeah, I think Huck wasn't expecting Morrow to get Hydras quite that quickly from that aggression. So now he is going to transition over, though, now that he knows that his opponent is going for that Roach Hydra build, not going for something like a, Baneling or a Speedling Muta type build. Now that he does know what Morrow's doing, he is going to go into that Colossus style play, I would assume. We could, of course, possibly see Immortals come out of that, but considering we don't see any type of Templar tech on the way or something like that, which would be pretty ridiculous, granted, on 2 base, probably going to be seeing some Colossi come out of this Robotic Facility.
Yeah, I would definitely expect to see that, especially after he's gotten a ton of information just from that little poke that he did. He knows that Morrow is getting Roaches and Hydralisks right now, and Colossus do very well against that, especially if you combine that with the fact that he's got 10 sentries in his army composition right now, and they're all going to have a ton of energy to work with very quickly here. So we see right now First Observer is being produced so that he can continue getting that crucial scouting information, and has the Robotics Facility on the way. He's also going to get an Immortal out to help him deal with that Roach threat. And wanted to try and throw down an expansion here at the 3 o'clock, but there is a circling blocking it over. I don't think that is in position to actually block the Nexus.
It looks like it's not so very close. Morrow does know exactly the timing on that Nexus, however. So at least he does have that scouting information. That being said, it definitely would have been better if he had burrowed that in the correct position to block that Nexus, as long as he was getting quick burrow. And he, of course, does also have tunneling claws done at this point. So the fact that, Huck only has this one observer might cause problems for him later. I mean, he's going to essentially have to keep that observer with his army, and he can't use it to scout. Granted, luckily for him, he does actually have this, or skillfully, I would say, he does actually have this Phoenix inside the Zerg base, still being as annoying as possible. But most importantly, getting all this scouting information. It sees, the evolution chamber. He can scout out to be able to find any coming tech that's going to happen in the future. And of course, he did scout the 3rd base of Morrow. However, I do not. Yeah, he has not scouted the 4th base of Morrow, which he just. Oh, of course not. Just dropped that down. So Morrow actually, despite getting all these upgrades, despite getting Tunneling Claws, getting himself a pretty darn big army instead of drone pumping, is actually just going to use this defensively to just take himself a 4th base. Of course, we might see some aggression from him coming around here at the 3rd of Huck in the near future, especially with these Stalkers being really annoying coming around and just cleaning up these creep tuners, which is definitely what we need to do as a Protoss player. You got to get that creep out of there, but he's got to be careful because he's about to lose a lot of these Stalkers for almost no gain at all. I mean, just the creep spread reduction. Here comes the Colossus out in front. He needs to move that Colossus back. He's getting target fired. Oh my god, Colossus gets removed immediately. Huge blunder by Huck. Now, immediately, of course, Morrow burrowing under the ridiculous number of force fields out on the field and able to move forwards into this army. He's going to just keep doing this burrow tactics. He needs to target fire that Immortal, though. It's doing ridiculous amounts of damage. If he doesn't target fire that Immortal, that could just completely change the outcome of this fight.
Yeah, that many force fields, and then all of the sentries go down. The last Colossus is going to pop out there, and that will drive Morrow back. But if you look at the supply count right now, Morrow has secured himself a 40 supply lead. He's gotten the Colossus count down, and he has bought himself time to start getting that those Corruptors out, as well as putting this gold expansion to use. Meanwhile, Huck really has nothing to do at this point but to try and make his army a little bit more cost-effective by getting some of these Colossus out, as well as researching Blink. So right now, Huck is in a pretty tough position. It's by far definitely not unwinnable, but he's going to have to be very cost-effective in these next few engagements, and it has to come out pretty far ahead if he doesn't want to end up throwing this game away. He doesn't have a lot of harassment opportunities at this point, and Morrow is definitely in the lead as far as the supply count is concerned. Still only one Colossus on the field. He's going to let it get hit by these roaches on the creep, and that Colossus shields are going to fall very quickly. Corruptors going to clean that up. Morrow sprinting forward with the remainder of these roaches, burrowing them to get under those force fields, once again taking out the last few of those sentries, and then these Stalkers are going to have to fall back, and another Colossus here, but the remaining forces of Morrow are going to walk up, pick that off, and there's now 154 to 93 supply, and Liquid.Huk has to throw out the GG.
Wow, that game, I mean, Morrow played phenomenally, but I really feel like it came down to Huck's lack of micro there. There were so many times where I just, I was feeling pain from a Protoss player's perspective. You know, watching that first Colossus just way out in front, not being paid attention to, and of course it just gets immediately target fired by the roaches. Losing that first Colossus like that, I mean, that's just, I mean, it's not GG right there, but that you can't do that. You really can't do that in the PvZ matchup, especially when you had all those force fields at his disposal. Really just wasn't paying enough attention to his army. And then once he dropped down all those force fields, what you really need to be doing there as a Protoss player is you need to be kiting, essentially. When the Zerg player starts burrowing under those force fields, you have to start moving back and attacking so you can keep dropping down more lines of force fields. If you let the Zerg player just get up right next to you, attacking all your units, that's definitely not what you want to have happen from a Protoss perspective. So really just, I feel like a lot of that came down to Huck's micro, but another really big factor of that game was also the upgrades. Consistently, you know, the entire mid game, Morrow was ahead by one upgrade. He was at 1-0, and Huck was at 0-0, and then Huck got to the 1-0, but Morrow was already at 2-0. So I mean, he's been up on upgrades all game long, and when it comes down to those really close engagements that just come down to a couple units of difference, that's really those upgrades are going to be really, really important.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to point out is that was a reasonably straightforward PvZ where a Zerg player who's going Roach Hydra will hit a timing in the mid game where he will get about 30 supply ahead, and that is exactly what we saw before that engagement with the first Colossus took place. And in those engagements, it's very important. In those first few engagements, it's very important for the Protoss player to be very cost-effective, or the Zerg player will secure an advantage, and it'll be very hard for the Protoss to come back. After losing that first Colossus like he did in that first engagement, as well as those few Stalkers that got sniped, and just some other small things, once you compound all of those factors, it quickly became almost an unwinnable scenario for Liquid.Huk, and with the excellent macro coming out of Morrow, it's just a very hard situation to be in as a Protoss player.
Yeah, it really is. So without any more delay, after this next commercial break, we'll be moving on to Game 2.